When the Spirit called the church into being, she spoke many languages. That same Spirit sends us out again and again to bring good news to the poor, the oppressed, the lost, the stranger. It is in this far country of awkward unknowns and risk that the Spirit does her work of transformation. There, all are reborn. All are transformed. We are a congregation of 2 languages, 2 locations, and many cultures. We are an experiment in living as one church while protecting and exploring our diversity. We are living our baptismal covenant together.
Two languages, people who worship in 2 different places, and we're here all together because when Jesus made the church, he said, first, I want you to be baptized so that you know that you're loved and you belong. That's melody, right? And second, I want you to get together around the big table and share bread and wine with me. And that's my day, right? Yes, this is her day to say, wow, I get to be at the table. And so we celebrate that today. Jesus said, we need to understand that we are all important, and that we are all loved, and that we all belong at the table. And so this morning, we're doing that, aren't we? Even though it's a little tricky. Because when I say things in English, and you speak Spanish, your ears go, what? And when I say things in Spanish and you speak English, your ears go, say that again? But we can make it work, can't we? And Jesus knew we could make it work. Remember that you're loved and God is with you, baptism. Gather around the table. Celebrate by eating bread and wine with me all together. That is the message. And here we are, and God is going, yes! Yes! At Grace Church and the Gracia this morning, yes, we have people here who don't know each other. People who have difficulty talking to each other. But God has told us that there is a unique and wonderful power when people who are not the same come together to worship. Wonderful opportunity this morning. Melody from this church here in Napa is being baptized. And she has a special gift with all the people from La Capilla de la Gracia standing up and supporting her in this decision. God Self made us different for a very important purpose. That we should come together and be blessed by our differences. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
I grew up in a church that was 40% Hispanic, but I had never been exposed to a Hispanic cultural people before because the church I grew up in, they were all 2nd and 3rd and 4th generation Hispanics, which is a very, very different culture than what you see with the first generation and the immigrants that have just come over. So it's been really interesting for me to look at the people and see their culture and how they are so different from myself and from the people here at Grace. But yet we all meld and we all come together and it works. You know, even though we don't speak the same language, it still works, and that's been really incredible to see, kind of, I guess.
Conocí nuevas personas y me gusta más esta religión porque la gente se ayuda como en una comunidad. Nos ayudamos todos como en una comunidad. Y Mother Karen trabaja más con los niños.
Experienced is the development of friendships between, you know, our congregation and the congregation of La Capilla, among our own congregation with each other, with and then I'm sure among the people who attend at La Capilla as well. But you know, they've been intergenerational friendships, intercultural friendships, and of course bilingual friendships, and so that's been a really exciting experience to watch and be part of those friendships as they develop.
My experience has been that when we come together as a group, whether it be for worship or for social activities, God is in the midst of us, that we find ourselves being blessed by things that we would never think of, that our lives are greatly enriched by having a community where we share love.
Several years ago, I think the church had actually made a commitment to minister to the Hispanic community. But we were offering services here at this church, and it was like we never connected. And so when Karen came up with the idea of going out to Farmway, I went, well, that just makes so much sense. That is just what needs to be done, because we're not meeting their needs by saying, here we are, but we're meeting their needs by going out and saying, you are here and you are loved.
Goes back to my childhood, where I was raised in basically an Athabascan native village. So I had two cultures in my upbringing all the way until I left to go to school. And this is much like that, where you have a different culture, different language, different people, different habits, different traditions, and all that sort of thing. And it's really neat because you learn so much from both sides of that.
Yeah.
And then with the kids going on the adventure trips and that sort of thing, it's been very gratifying to see them get out and get to do something different where they don't have the chance to do it normally, and I think that's very important for our partnership here.
Yeah, and so you're one of the volunteers that makes that possible.
Es que les dan, principalmente, les dan una bienvenida a los niños. Y pues a mí me ha gustado mucho desde hace 5 años que estoy en esta iglesia.
Part of it is the language of, we don't really have any Hispanic people to actually minister to the congregation out there, and so we're just a bunch of gringos trying to communicate the best that we can.
Yeah.
Obviously, the biggest one is language, because nobody here at Grace speaks Spanish. So that's a huge, huge challenge. I know that Karen is really stepped up to the plate, you know, trying to learn enough Spanish that she can do the service in their language. And I think that is probably our biggest challenge. I think our second biggest challenge is being thoughtful regarding the differences between the cultures and how do we put them together and meld them so that we can share ours with them, but they also get to share theirs with us. So,
well, one challenge is just the awkwardness of moving beyond people that you're comfortable with or the types of people that you interact with normally in your normal social circles. It's difficult to, you know, make the first move, to step forward and say, hey, how's it going? You know, you don't know for sure if they're going to speak your language or not, or to what extent, and I'm sure on their side it's also uncomfortable, and, you know.
You know, I guess really I see kind of minor challenges that may be big challenges to other people. I think one of the challenges has been to allocate our resources, both of people and of money, and that sometimes people don't always agree about how those resources should be allocated.
We have several families out there that, you know, are regular participants, but there's also a lot of transition out there. So there's been a lot of people that have come and gone.
Well, 2 flat tires on the bus didn't help much.
That's true.
Que las personas se llevan mejor como en comunidad, aunque no hablen español o no hablen inglés. Y no importa el idioma, aunque uno no se entienda, tratan de entenderse y ayudarse como si fuéramos una familia unida. Y hemos hecho muchos cambios en la iglesia de la Gracia, con la ayuda de Mother Karen. Ayuda a muchas personas cuando lo necesitan. Y yo pienso que la ayuda que da ella en otras iglesias no la dan, o si la dan no es como lo mismo.
Pues he aprendido que mis hijos han acercado más a la iglesia para que Dios nos saque adelante.
It's given us a vision. We don't, you know, we have something to work for. We're not just a church that exists for our own sake. We're not just inward focused all the time. We have an outside vision and a direction that we are all moving towards in our own ways. And I think that gives the church a sense of unity and strength that not all churches have.
That's good. Personally, how?
I think part of the blessing is that, just like in our service this morning, where we have part of it in Spanish and part of it in English, that we really do get to experience what Christ calls us to be in communion with each other, and that our neighbor is the people at Farmway as well as the people in this neighborhood. And it's been great to see it, and I love listening to the scriptures in another language. So whenever we have a bilingual service, I always look forward to the scriptures because I get to hear them in this other language. It's like, oh hey, you know, the Word has become flesh and is dwelling among us in our own languages, just like what it talks about in John and in Acts. It's an incredible experience. So those are some of the things that I have really been blessed by.
Pues me he sentido más contenta en esta iglesia porque aquí cada que venimos todos los gabachos son muy amables con uno y es muy diferente.
We see a little bit different story. And as a social worker, I've always valued the differences in people. I think it's easier to value the differences and the struggles that other people are engaged in when you actually know people and you have interaction with people. So I think that enriches us to have a broader experience of
well, just from a personal standpoint, I feel really blessed to be able to do this. Whenever we get together, I feel an opening of my heart. That's how I felt today during the service today. I just felt this just widening of my heart. I don't know how else to explain it.
That's good. That's perfect. So then, how?
Well, it's just like today, here in the service we had this morning, that all the people from out there feel comfortable with coming in here and worshiping with us in our church. And I think that there's quite a few people go out there and worship with them too. I haven't yet.
Me ha bendecido porque para mí es como si fuera mi segunda familia y no nada más mi familia, somos como un grupo unido, como una comunidad unida y como si fuéramos una familia que cuando necesitamos uno del otro, todos nos apoyamos juntos.
Pues me ha hecho crecer más mi fe porque yo prefiero que la iglesia episcopal son padres casados y vengo con más satisfacción a oír la misa.
You kind of get into a certain way of looking at things. You get into a certain way of seeing things. And what this has done is it has changed the way I have to see those things. Mm-hmm. You know, I think of mission work as something that is in another continent. Mm-hmm. But yet we have taken mission work and it's 20 miles away, mm-hmm. or 5 miles away, or 10 miles away, or across the street. It's not, it's much more personal. And it has to be more thoughtful. Have to be more capable. We have to be more open. Mm. And so I would say it's been much more of an expanding influence on my faith.
Well, thank you.
I just think it goes back to how we're supposed to behave in sharing what we have with others, and being willing to help where we can. And that.
It's given me a lot of experiences that have challenged the way that I see things. You know, my faith, I think, is something that, you know, I don't do well when I'm just sitting in one place. I have to be moving forward and be constantly challenged and have something to be thinking about, mulling about, you know, questions to answer, and this ministry has given me that, and so I think it's like the impetus or the catalyst to change and move forward and grow.
Good. Thank you.
Porque he aprendido más a saber quién es Dios, a creer más en Dios y a que mis hijos crezcan sabiendo quién es Dios y que tengamos una iglesia para ir a hacer la oración y a pedirle a Dios cuando necesitamos algo y no nada más cuando necesitamos, para que todo el tiempo esté cerca de nosotros.
Make it more meaningful to me. That the fact that no matter who you are, where you come from, what your background is, we share God's grace.
Yeah.
Will you proclaim by word and example the good news in Christ?
Will you seek and serve Christ in all persons, loving your neighbor as yourself?
Will you strive for peace and justice among all people and respect the dignity of every human being?
Lo haré con la ayuda de Dios.
I will with God's help.
I will with God's help.
Yo lo haré con la ayuda de Dios.
I will with God's help.